everybody, I'm Dave Cook. I'm with the Eno River Association. I've got Mike with me. He's operating the camera. We're out on the beautiful Eno River. We are on a reptile and amphibian safari. We are blessed with all kinds of fascinating creatures here on the Eno. We've come out to spend the day here on a spring day in late March to see what's crawling around, what's hiding under things, and we're going to share all those things with you. We're at the confluence this morning on our reptile and amphibian safari, so we're going to head out. We've actually got this place set up to help us find reptiles and amphibians, so I'm going to show you some of the neat things we do here so that it makes it easier for us to find them and inventory them and know what we have. So what we've done here at the confluence is we've actually put out something called cover boards. Cover boards are just pieces of tin or plywood that our little critters can hide underneath, but it makes it easier to find them. We can lift them up, take a look, and see if we've got anything there. So I'm going to head off into the woods and we're going to see what's underneath our cover boards. Ready? All right, so this is a corrugated tin cover board. We're going to lift it up. Hopefully we're going to find something really cool underneath it, and we'll catch what it is and show you what we've got. So let's take a look and see what we have. Now I got to tell you a little bit of safety here. When we lift cover boards, we lift them back towards us. Most of the time there's nothing we need to worry about under it, but just under the case that there might be a copperhead under it, we're going to lift it, and so we have a barrier in between. Hope we find a copperhead, because that would actually be pretty cool. All right, here we go. And I don't see anything under this one. Oh, yes I do. There's a slimy salamander. Let's see if we can catch this guy. There we go. So we have found a slimy salamander under this cover board. They're slimy for a reason. That's actually their name, because if you touch them, they actually do get a lot of slime on you. These guys are predators, believe it or not. They actually hunt. They hunt for slugs, worms, insects, all kinds of little invertebrates. A lot of salamanders lay their eggs in the water, but these slimy salamanders actually lay their eggs up inside of rotten logs, and the young are born on land. I'm wearing a glove in this picture because the dry skin and oils on my hand actually could damage the sensitive skin of a salamander. On our way to our next cover board, we found a chorus frog. Rolling. All right, so a lot of times here in the spring, you hear something that sounds like somebody rasping a comb, like somebody just running their finger over the teeth. Well, that's the upland chorus frog. These little guys here, they work in great colonies, and they get down around ephemeral pools, little streams, places like that where they want to breed, and they start calling. It makes a great sound. So this is a full-grown one right here. They don't get any bigger than this. Another safety tip when you're looking under cover boards, rolling logs, lifting up rocks to find things, don't stick your fingers where something can bite or sting you. Use a tool to lift things up. We found something really harmless though under this one. We found a worm snake. So he's called a worm snake. You could say, well, he does kind of look like a worm, brownish, living down here in the ground. He also eats worms. So he loves to eat worms. Now they're very secretive. They're usually under the leaf litter, under logs, under rocks, because a lot of things will also eat a worm snake. So he may be a hunter, but he doesn't want to be the prey, so he tries to hide as much as he can. Tree frog tubes are used to help inventory tree frogs. It attracts them. You know, normally a tree frog around here would like to get into a wet knot in a tree, a little fork in a tree, someplace up in the trees but stays a little damp. So we artificially provide that. This is a tree frog tube plunger, and the whole thing is if we see a tree frog and we want to look at it, we take the cap off the bottom here and we can push the tree frog gently out with a soft sponge so that we don't hurt them. We have tree frog tubes here at the confluence because in the summer we take Eno River Field Station with middle and high school students, and we do an inventory of the reptiles and amphibians, and they go around with actual scientists and see what they can find and take the data from them as well. So we're going to be looking in the tree frog tubes here at the confluence and see what we find. So if you wanted to make a tree frog tube for your house, you've got a little woods out there that might have tree frogs in them and you want to be able to look for them, it's really nothing magical. This is just a PVC tube. We've just cut it to 2 feet of length. We put a PVC cap on the end. We didn't glue it on there because we want to be able to take it off. We hung it from a nail in the tree, so we just drilled a little hole in there where we had a place to nail our, put a nail in and hang it. And then you put a little bit of water in it. Usually rainwater takes care of it. That's what the tree frog's looking for, is a kind of dark hole in a tree that's wet. So we're going to check this one and see if we have a tree frog in it. And looks like we have something down in there. So we're going to take the bottom off the tube. Hopefully it won't be stuck too much. There we go. It's just dirt. That's all it is, just dirt. No, it's a snake. We have a snake. Come here, little snake. There we go, a little rat snake. I'm putting a glove on. So rat snakes are pretty harmless. Here we go, this is just a young one. So you're familiar with black rat snakes. Well, that's what this guy is. But when they're young, they aren't black. They actually have all these spots, gray and black. And in fact, the spots are a lot more pronounced when they're very young. So I don't know why. I mean, they like to climb. Black rat snakes love to climb. They're looking for food when they do that. They eat eggs and they eat birds. This guy may have just wanted to go down in our tree frog tube to get a drink of water. They're like every other animal. They got to drink. So he's being very cooperative. It's not hot, but it's kind of cool out here. It's in the 60s, so he's probably why he's not moving quite as much. So when he's full grown, he could actually get up to 7 feet. Now that's a little unusual, but it does happen. 6 feet for a black rat snake, that's pretty common. So they actually are usually pretty easy to tame. I'm not saying you need to go out and get one for a pet, but they're constrictors. And so a little bit of handling, and they usually actually get very used to people. They like to eat warm-blooded things, so mice, voles. They're not going to find too many moles because moles are underground, but birds, anything warm like that. And what they'll do, black rat snakes are constrictors. And you might think that they squeeze something to death, but what they actually do is they grab their prey, loop their coils around it. Every time their prey, which is usually something like a mouse, exhales, of course their lungs collapse some, so they tighten the coils. And they keep tightening the coils every time their prey exhales until their prey can't bring in any air anymore and essentially suffocates. Sounds cruel, but that's nature. They've got to eat, just like everything else out here. They help keep the rodent population under control, or we'd have way too many. So they're actually pretty welcome around barns and places where people are trying to protect things from rodents. I'm standing on the east fork of the Eno on Sycamore Rock. We're at the Confluence Natural Area. The east fork goes down here, it goes this way, meets the west fork on the Eno, and we are at the headwaters of the Eno River, where it travels 33 miles till it joins the flat and becomes the Neuse River. And we hope you come visit us at the Confluence area. We've got over 2 miles of trails. It's very scenic out here. We'd love to have you come visit. So we're over in the Eno River State Park, and we're by an ephemeral pool or a vernal pool. It's really the same thing, but it's a temporary water thing. Frogs and toads a lot of times look for this for breeding, as do a lot of salamanders, because they need fish-free waters. They don't want the fish to eat the babies. And we're looking down in here and we're seeing lots of tadpoles. This one's an interesting made. It's actually made by beavers. I'm not sure why they dammed up such a little spot, but where Michael's videoing from, he's standing on some of the beaver works over there. So we're going to dip into this pool and we're going to see if we can identify just what kind of tadpoles we've got down in here. Okay, so I'm getting these tadpoles out of the net with my hand. One of the things I've done is I got my hand wet because it would be bad for the tadpoles if I touch them with dry hands. So we're going to put them in here, just a few of them, and then I'm going to let the rest of them go, just so we can see, maybe we can see what's been breeding down here in our little pool.
The algae, they like that. They are algae eaters. You know, it's funny for something that turns into an insect eater to go into go and grow into that. All right, I'm gonna go let these guys go. All right, so we found a Fowler's toad under a log, and we're lucky to have lots of Fowler's toad here at Eno River and here in the state park. He's got a close relative called the American toad here that we find as well. To me, this is an unusual color. They're usually more gray, and to see them this reddish is really cool. Now these guys, they breed in the little ephemeral ponds, the vernal pools. They can breed and will breed some in the river. They're more fish tolerant than a lot of other species of amphibians are. And let's see, what else can we tell you about this? And of course, what they like to do is sort of hunker down and wait for an insect. It could be ants, could be worms, anything to come by, but they will hunt around a little bit from their burrows, but they usually have a burrow that they pretty much stick to, a home that they stick to. Now toads, they can't hop very far. They're not like frogs. They don't do big hops. They do little crawling most of the time. They don't give you warts. So a lot of times when a toad picks you pick a toad up, they'll squirt something on their hands. That's defense. They've actually got some little toxins that they can squirt out, and that's, you know, if something picks them up in their mouth, it sort of irritates their mouth. So I'm always telling my dogs they don't want to pick up a toad because they're going to regret it. And fortunately, I think they've learned that. If we get squirted by a toad, it's not a big deal on our hands. We just wash our hands, we're good to go. Our reptile and amphibian safari has taken us onto Moore Creek on the Eno River State Park. When I was growing up, my friends and I would spend a lot of time playing in creeks like this, and we would catch things. And what the king of all things to catch was a salamander. You were really something when you did it. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to wander up and down the creek. We're going to flip over some rocks in the creek bed, maybe look at some logs on the sides, and see if we can find us a salamander. We were walking up Moore Creek and we spotted this brown snake. And I don't call him brown because of the brown color. That's just what the name of the snake is right here. It's another one of those little small ground snakes that lives here on the Eno. There's actually quite a lot of them. They get a little bigger than this, but not a whole lot bigger. They don't have to be too much bigger because their food is slugs and earthworms, and so they're plenty big enough for that. What I found fascinating by them, I kept one of these one time for a short period, and I didn't realize that they give what we call live birth. It's not the same as a mammal, but they carry their eggs inside their body, and then the eggs hatch there and the babies then come out. So I kept one in a terrarium, and then one day, without any eggs, all of a sudden I had a bunch of little baby brown snakes. So pretty cool little animal here. They usually are hiding in the leaf litter. We got real lucky. This one had just come out on the surface and I managed to pick him up. They're very docile. They might stink up your hands a little bit when you pick them up, but other than that, very friendly little snakes. You're likely to find one around your house or your garden. So we have caught a juvenile dusky, northern dusky salamander. You find duskies around streams and springs and seepages. They lay their eggs either right along the stream banks and logs or up under leaves or stuff, or sometimes in the water itself under the rocks. And so this guy will get bigger than this. He'll get several inches longer than this, and he's got little gills. When I put him in the water, we'll see if you can see the little gills. They're pretty small, but he will actually eventually become mostly a land salamander and will live, but still live close, usually close to the stream. So we caught a two-line salamander. This is an adult. That you can tell it has no gills, but these are common salamanders right here on our creeks, springs, seepages, and usually the adults, even though they don't live in the water as much as the juveniles, you still find them right around the creeks. This guy will grow some more. He's about 3 inches long, might get up to as much as 5 inches long. But they live along the creeks, and of course they're hunters. They're looking for worms and little invertebrates and bugs and stuff like that to eat. Now when I handle him, I always wet my hands because they have sensitive skin. So I either need to wear a glove or make sure my hands are wet, and I always stick them down in the creek and bring them up that way. Let's see if I can get him up where you can see him a little better. He doesn't like it, that's for sure. He thinks I'm going to eat him. I'm not. In fact, a lot of amphibians have little toxins that make them irritable to eat. And there we go. Isn't he pretty? He's a good climber, isn't he? You can see the 2 lines running down the sides. Very common for them to have the flecks down their back like that. Very fast. Very hard to catch because, boy, they like to wiggle in and out of these rocks of the creek. You'll find them up under logs too. They're usually hiding. They're usually under things. They're not on top where you're going to find them. You have to look for them. So we're on Nancy Rhodes Creek at the Eno River State Park, and Michael has spotted a northern water snake. There was actually 2 of them. We've already scared one of them off, which is why I'm not going to climb down there and try to catch him, because he'd just jump in the water and be gone as I was scrambling down the bank. So we'll talk about him a little bit while he's here. Lots of northern water snakes here on the Eno. They are basically harmless. They are a little cranky. When you pick up water snakes, you got to be careful because the initial reactions, they try to bite you. It's not a major injury, but it's, you got to make sure your tetanus shot's up to date. Now, what they really like to bite is frogs and fish and crayfish, things of that nature, salamanders, anything like that down here in the water. Great swimmers. They're very comfortable, and what they'll do is they'll jump in the water, and so often people get scared of them because they're walking along a trail in the Eno and that snake seems to be coming right at them. Well, what the snake's doing is trying to get to the water, not to you. You just happen to be in the way, and once they're scared, that is their go-to, is to head to the water. They get a lot bigger than that. They get a lot fatter than that. They will flatten their heads. If they open their mouth, it looks kind of white inside, so people think it's a cottonmouth. We don't have any cottonmouths, water moccasins on the Eno. All the snakes you see generally in the water are harmless. Occasionally a copperhead decides to swim in the water, so you got to know what those look like. But again, if you don't get close to it, nothing can happen to you anyway. You ready? Yep. Okay. We're looking at our northern water snake. He's probably, I got to scramble down a bank to get to him, so he's probably going to jump in the creek and take off. But let's see what happens when I walk down there. First trick is finding a way down to him. He's keeping very still. Of course, hoping. Oh, there he goes. And that's pretty normal for a northern water snake. So we're at a vernal pool on the Eno River State Park in a wetlands area. All this water back here. This is prime amphibian breeding territory. We should find some good stuff in here. I'm going to go out with my D-frame net. I've got a vinyl glove, or excuse me, a nitrile glove, so that if I need to handle an amphibian with dry hands, I can do that. I can always do it with wet hands. Just in case we find a good snake that might not be happy that I found him, I've got my good heavy-duty glove to pick one of those up too. So I'm going to walk out here in the water and see what we can catch. I see salamander larvae. Let's see if I can catch it. Yep. I did. I'm going to bring it, I believe what I've got, the spotted salamander larvae. I'm going to bring it up here on shore. We'll take a look. Go ahead. So we found some spotted salamander larvae in this great vernal pool down here at Eno River State Park. These guys, they actually have their eggs laid in the winter time. The adults go back to a breeding pond, someplace that's going to hold water good, but it's fish free because they don't want their babies to be eaten by fish. And these guys will be here for several months before they become adults later in the spring. Adult spotted salamanders live under rocks and logs and the leaf litter. They're around. They're like a lot of other salamanders. When it's sort of cool and moist, they like to be out. They actually go to these ponds when it's quite cold, but they do like some dampness. But they are themselves hunting for slugs and worms and other little invertebrates that they can eat. We had a great day with our reptile and amphibian safari here on the Eno. Now there's 46 different kinds of reptiles and amphibians on the Eno, so we only found a few of them. But we hope that you come out here and maybe you'll get to spot a few when you come as well and enjoy and just know just all of the fantastic creatures that you could find on our state parks and preserves all up and down this fascinating river.